You know, I count my missions. I had 269. These guys, they don't even bother to count. They don't even bother to count. They just fly and fly and fly. And then we went out, we examined the ruins of Palmyra. And when Jesus Christ walked the earth, there already were 2,000 years of civilizations built one upon the other, ancient temples. And so in all you had 4,000 years of history. It was a priceless gem. It was a UNESCO World Heritage Site. People came from all over the world to see it. When ISIS came in, they vandalized it. And they blew down things and they destroyed things and they shipped antiquities off. Guess where they shipped them? Turkey. Our good ally Turkey took all of these antiquities that should be viewed by people 10,000 years from now, and they're pawning them off on the open market. I did a press conference there. We had press following us all over the place, and essentially I was saying, and I think this captures it, where was the American coalition? We had this enormous force of aircraft. I don't know how many countries, what are there, 20, 30, 40, I don't know how many we count in the coalition. When ISIS attacked Palmyra, and we knew this was a heritage site, and we knew how precious it was, somehow they have vision problems in the CIA and the State Department, and they could not see hundreds and hundreds of tanks and thousands of trucks and hundreds of artillery pieces and armored cars and things in the wide open desert. Somehow they just missed it. Well, they didn't miss it. They saw ISIS as a tool that they could use, and they knew that Palmyra was one step closer to Damascus, and they were quite happy to have ISIS be the force that entered and conquered Damascus and slaughtered everybody. And so it just outraged me, and I didn't bring other slides, but I could show you the terrible destruction that took place. It was a great tragedy, not just for our generation, but for 100 generations to come, that the United States stood by and allowed this to happen deliberately. Now, just a few words about the war, and this slide is perhaps the most instructive. If you look at the orange plus the tan areas, with the exception of Aleppo and up there, that's the big population centers of Syria. And the orange parts are the parts that are governed and controlled by the government. Probably 75–80% of the population of Syria. From everything that I can tell, not just from my visit, but I happen to have had two women who were traveling there incognito, and they reported the people are absolutely happy with President Assad. They're absolutely happy with their government. And so the vast bulk of the people stand beside. You think about it. This war's been going on for 5 years. There's not been one attempt on President Assad's life, and not one single rebel leader has emerged as a popular figure with the Syrian people. Isn't that amazing? In Nazi Germany, people were, there was tremendous support for Adolf Hitler. There were 6 or 8 serious attempts on his life. I met the cousin of one of the fellows who actually did the bomb that almost killed Hitler. So you had all of those attempts. the Syrian people have not tried to assassinate President Assad. And so you have to ask, well, why? Well, you have to have a certain amount of popularity. If you are really disliked by your people are going to find a way to do something about it. Now, okay, so the bright orange is the part that's controlled by the government. The part around Idlib is a pocket that's formed by Al-Qaeda, which, Al-Nusra, Arar al-Sham, all of these groups, but they are Al-Qaeda or Al-Qaeda allies. And now that tan part has shrunken. The Syrian army has managed to squeeze it. Up around Aleppo, what I really want to show you, if you could see the part with the dotted outline and the great ISIS arrow pointing down. Okay, it's right next to Kobani. Now, you all remember the Battle of Kobani. The Kurds were there. ISIS was on a sweep. They were rolling over the Kurds, and the Kurds made a final stand in Kobani. And lo and behold, to everybody's surprise, they held out. And they couldn't be defeated. And they fought, and they fought. And finally, it became a political embarrassment to the administration, and they said, all right, let's give them a little bit of help. So we did some bombing campaigns, and at a certain point, once DOD had some discretion, DOD, frankly, there's a lot of Syrian sympathy in the Department of Defense, not in the State Department. We have a split government on this. But once DOD had the wherewithal, the next thing, they parachuted supplies into the Kurds. Anyway, the Kurds were able to win a great victory at Kobani, and much to everyone's surprise, they didn't stop there, but they rolled on. And the areas you see in green are controlled by the Kurds right now, and they actually have expanded beyond this. This is slightly dated, but what they were doing is they were choking off the Turkish routes of supply for ISIS. Every bullet, every canister of poison gas, every artillery shell, every tank, every truck that comes in to the terrorist comes from Turkey with the approval, the highest level approval of the government. I have spoken to witnesses who watched at the major highways leading into Turkey, and I was told they are running hundreds of oil tankers across the border right past the guards. And I asked the question, I said, hundreds in what period of time? And I was told hundreds every single day. At the height of this, 44,000 barrels of oil stolen from Syria were being run across the border and sold by Turkey. So Turkey dealt in stolen oil, in stolen antiquities, and most disgustingly of all, when they seized Mosul over in Iraq, they seized modern hospitals, and they ordered the doctors to take Christian and Yazidi children, strap them down on the operating table, and with the children still alive, cut them open and harvest their live organs while the children were still alive, and then pack the organs in ice, ship them off where they went to Turkey and to Saudi Arabia for sale on the open market. Those are our allies. With allies like those, I tell you what, you don't need enemies. But Turkey has essentially become a kleptocracy, and a very disgusting one. So these are the things that Turkey was doing. Now, Turkey did not want to become part of the coalition because they are the #1 ally of ISIS, and they have been from the beginning. But they saw that they were being choked off by the Kurds. And so they came to the United States. They said, look, we'll cut a deal with you. We are going to join the coalition. However, you have to allow us to bomb in this area that you see in gray. Now, the gray is all ISIS. Okay? Raqqa is the capital city of ISIS. And you can see the area that they're looking at. We agreed, and immediately Turkey launched 300 airstrikes. Their eyesight is not very good, okay? And they happened to hit the Kurds with 297 out of 300 airstrikes.
It was well planned.
Wow, what great allies against ISIS they are. Basically what they were doing is they were keeping open their supply lines to ISIS because they make a lot of money from ISIS and they make a lot of trouble with ISIS. Okay, I'm going to run quickly through some of the latest things happening in the war. There is a huge battle brewing over Aleppo. It's not the first time, but the 4th Mechanized Division of the Syrian army has moved in. There are reinforcements coming out of Hezbollah moving in. And what happened, there were two things that the Syrian army did very effectively. One is if you could see the arrow where they went in and they relieved the Khawaris air base. It had been under siege for 2 years. And, somehow the media thinks that all the sieges are Syrian, that only the Syrian army has sieges. And somehow they overlook places like the Khawaris air base, places like Deir al-Azor, which is a very large city that's been under siege for many years, and also the Shiite area of Nubal and Zahara. I'm probably not pronouncing it right. You have to bear with me when I pronounce Syrian names. But the Shiites were up in this pocket. They were being besieged, and the Syrian army first relieved the siege of Khawaris. They hooked to the left, and they took that entire area away from Al-Qaeda, and they threatened Al-Bab, which is up at the top, which is an important communications center. They also hooked over, and they connected up with the Shiites in Nubal and Zahara, and they managed to choke off the supply lines coming out of Turkey to Aleppo. Now, Turkey responded by increasing their supplies coming through Latakia province, and you can see the big arrow, the big Al-Qaeda arrow, and they have forced back the Syrian army in this area here. So the struggle goes back and forth. I mean, this is a huge undertaking, and only God knows the exact direction it will take. This is that area that I showed you that Turkey keeps open as a way of getting their supplies back and forth with ISIS. And the interesting thing, there are two communication centers in it. You can see where all of the roads meet in these two towns. One is Al-Bab, the other is Manjib. The United States has recently organized the Kurds with a handful of Arabs and has pretty much surrounded Manjib, and they are choking that off. Al-Bab is not nearly as effective because it is constantly under threat by the Syrian army. So this Kobani Gap is beginning to be strangled by U.S. forces and also to some extent by the Syrian forces. On the final day of my visit over there, I met with Ambassador Bashar al-Jafari. I want to tell you something about this man because he is one of the great heroes of Syrian history. There are certain things that we do when we topple countries. We did it in Libya, we did it in Syria. The first thing is we tell the terrorists, okay, adopt the old flag before the new government. We did it in Libya, we did it in Syria. Same exact thing. What a coincidence. The other thing that we do is we send in intelligence operatives and we buy off the ambassadors to the United Nations so that they will turn on their own countries. We did it successfully with Libya. And then they went and they essentially gave a blank check to this man that you see here, the UN ambassador to Syria, and he said no. He said, money is not, I am not for sale. I will not sell the blood of the Syrian people. Let's see here. I think we have missed a couple of the slides at the end. Well, let me just pick up without slides from there. Do you have mine? If you can run to the jury. Okay, there it is. Is there a way of displaying that? Yes. Yes, Okay, the final thing that I want to talk about before we go over to questions and answers is, let's see, can you, there we go. Steps to end the war. A lot is going to depend on the next elections. I'm going to tell you, Hillary Clinton was instrumental in starting the war against Libya and the war against Syria, instrumental in weaponizing religion, and every filthy thing that has happened. Now, I'm not saying this as a partisan, because I could say things about George Bush that Bush supporters would not be fond to hear. My concern is with Syria, and it's with ending this war. If we were to get a president who was receptive to the idea of peace, here are the steps that I would recommend immediately. Number one is to end the U.S. sanctions. We literally have sanctions that prevent them from getting prosthetic devices for amputees and cancer medications for civilians who are dying of cancer, and we say, no way. We cut off medicine, we cut off food, we cut off everything. And it's unlawful, but we do it. The next thing is we need to close U.S. terror training camps. You might be surprised to know that we have been training terrorists in Jordan, Qatar, Saudi Arabia, and Turkey for years. I think we started somewhere around 2012. And we say, oh, these are moderate rebels. Well, once they're trained, they go into the market. They go into the open market. And a large percentage of the ISIS soldiers have been trained in U.S. training camps. A large percentage of the Al-Qaeda trained in U.S. training camps. We need to close those down. The other thing is we need to halt U.S. weapons to terrorists. When Russia moved in to rescue Syria at a very desperate time, had we not rushed in with anti-tank missiles, Syria would be at peace today. But we sent in anti-tank missiles, we sent them to the moderate rebels, like Arar al-Sham, which just carried out a massacre where they slaughtered women, captured women, and they burned alive their children. They hung them up and burned them alive. They're not terrorists. John Kerry tells us they're not terrorists. I don't know what the definition of terrorist is. If you can hang up a child and you can burn them alive, what is a terrorist? I don't know. Okay, we need to halt weapons going to terrorists. We need to reopen the Syrian embassy. We closed it in 2014. Timelines. I'm always watching timelines. What else happened in 2014? President Assad conducted a full and fair election, as fair as you're ever going to get in wartime. He was elected with 89% of the vote, and 3/4 of the electorate turned out. It was a massive, massive vote for him. There were 2 other respected individuals who ran, and but we closed the embassy. Why did we close the embassy? Because we knew that if Syrian Americans in the United States were permitted to vote, they would vote overwhelmingly for President al-Assad, which would be an enormous black eye for the U.S. State Department. Were I advising the President of the United States, I would prepare an executive order that would forbid the CIA and the State Department from taking any actions against Syria, and I would forbid aid of any sort to the rebels. I don't care how moderate they are, how dull their knives are, how few children they hang alive. No aid, no diplomatic aid. I would make it so explicit, and then I would call in the top leadership. And I'm going to tell you what, I would take a mallet and I would smash the table for emphasis. And they would know that I was dead serious about it. We need peace. We don't even talk about peace anymore. This is the first war we have ever fought in American history where we don't even speak about eventually reaching peace. We talk about the long war, get ready for a long war, forever. And I'm sick of it, I'm tired of it, and I want to do everything I can to end it. And so with that, I'm going to end my presentation and open it up to questions. We'll accept very brief comments. Please, if you make a comment, if you could keep it like a 1-sentence comment so that we can focus on questions.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Wonderful presentation. So, if you feel more comfortable writing a question on a piece of paper, Tatiana and Lauren have index cards. If you want to say your question on the microphone, feel free to do so. Just make it brief. If you feel more comfortable saying it in Arabic or writing in Arabic, please do so. We can translate, but we can take questions. Tatiana and Lauren, you can walk around. If anyone wants.
Thank you, Senator, for your courage.